The boy I had a crush on got expelled from school to protect his childhood sweetheart. Years later, when I became the most famous agent, I saw him waiting tables at a restaurant. He didn't remember me at all, but I still wanted to give him a chance. I asked him, "Adrian, do you want to act?" He came with me. It took me 3 years to transform him from a waiter into the newest top star in the entertainment industry. Then the childhood sweetheart he once protected came back for him. Adrian didn't tell me about Audrey coming to see him. I only learned about it when a media outlet I'm familiar with captured a video of Adrian shopping at a supermarket with a girl. I have a good relationship with the owner of this media company. The amount I show my respect by transferring to his account each year could cover the annual revenue of a mid-sized company with 100 employees. So, he didn't release the story following underworld ethics. He gave me the video as a personal favor instead. I clicked on the video. The paparazzi must have been staking out for a long time because Adrian in the photos was fully disguised. Unless you were extremely familiar with him, you wouldn't recognize him. In contrast, the girl beside him dressed in casual clothes had no disguise at all. Even after all this time with the footage so blurry, I recognized her at first glance. Audrey, Adrian S. and my high school classmate and also his childhood sweetheart. Back in high school, Adrian was already a standout figure. He was exceptional, never ranking outside the top 10 in grade-wide exams. Of course, I consistently held the top spot, but unlike me who spent nearly 10 hours studying every day, he was the type who could effortlessly achieve excellent grades. With top grades, good looks, and popularity, he was famous throughout the school, and Audrey, who walked to and from school with him daily, naturally attracted a lot of attention too. Back then, Adrian was the student all the teachers had the highest hopes for. During the final sprint of senior year, everyone pinned their expectations on him until he overreacted while protecting Audrey from being harassed by a troublemaker on their way home, leaving the latter permanently disabled. The incident caused quite a stir at the time, even alarming the Education Bureau. It's unclear whether any records were kept. The troublemaker's parents were influential and refused to let it go, while Audrey, the key witness who should have come forward to explain, never showed up. The school had no choice but to expel Adrian in the end. The last time I saw Adrian during my high school years was at the bus station, his figure dragging a suitcase, swallowed by the crowd. He was very tall, and I watched him glance around in the sea of people, probably failing to find the person he hoped to see before giving a self-deprecating smile and boarding the bus to City A without looking back. At the time, I hid in the crowd to secretly see him off one last time, though there was no need to hide. Really, Adrian might not have even known who I was. I saw him again 7 years later at an ordinary celebration banquet. When he approached with a 1992 law fight, I recognized him at first glance and exclaimed in astonishment, "Adrian." He was also stunned and politely asked, "Do you know me?" I laughed. Then, looking at him, the early hardships of life had tempered his demeanor into something steady and inscrutable, yet his handsome features remained strikingly attractive. Unlike the pretty boys I currently managed, his good looks carried an undercurrent of quiet depth. With his sharply defined brows and starry eyes, a single glance from him could captivate a room. I didn't tell him we were high school classmates. Just before leaving, I handed him my business card. He took it, glanced at it, and showed no reaction upon seeing my name, that S, when I knew he had no memory of me. But I wasn't bothered. I smiled at him sincerely and said, "Adrian, you've got great potential. Would you be interested in entering the entertainment industry?" 3 days later, I received a call from Adrian. Adrian had excellent natural qualities in showbiz. A handsome face alone can secure you a place in the sun. Combined with me pouring all my resources into promoting him with all the stars aligned, Adrian's rise to fame was inevitable. He became the ace artist under my management. He had always cooperated with me, causing no trouble or incidents until today when I received this video. I watched the video on my phone again and called Adrian, but no one answered. After a moment of contemplation, I closed my phone, stood up, grabbed the car keys from my desk, and walked out. I stood at Adrian's doorstep and rang his doorbell. A long time passed with no one coming to open the door, so I waited another 5 minutes before starting to enter the passcode. Everything about Adrian was taken care of by me. This house was one I introduced to him. When he earned his first pot of gold, it offered strong privacy protections, and more importantly, I was familiar with the developer, saving him a good deal of money. Back when we were setting the passcode, I asked him what to set it, as he seemed to have no particular thoughts at the time, and just said whatever. I smiled wryly and joked, "Anything? Well, then I'll set it as my birthday. That way, every time you enter the password, you'll remember my birthday, and remember to thank your benefactor by sending me lavish gifts on time." He laughed at the time, and that password remained unchanged to this day. I entered my birthday, and with a beep, the door unlocked. Standing at the doorway, I knocked. Once more, I'd given Adrian more than enough time. I didn't know what might be inside, but whatever it was, this much time should have been sufficient for him to tidy up. I walked in and was surprised to find Adrian wasn't there. Instead, a girl stood in the middle of the living room wearing Adrian's t-shirt with 2 pale legs peeking out from underneath, looking at me in startled confusion. It was Audrey. I paused at the entryway, then asked her, "Where's Adrian?" She looked at me, hesitantly, suspicion in her voice, as she asked, "Who are you?" I didn't answer. Opening the shoe cabinet, I found my slippers missing. When I glanced up at Audrey, sure enough, there they were on her feet. I didn't speak. I have severe misophobia. Once my personal belongings are touched by others, I won't want them anymore. I didn't show any emotion toward Audrey. Instead, I smiled politely and introduced myself to her. "Hello, I'm Adrian's agent, and also his girlfriend. Could you please tell me where Adrian is?" Adrian and I got together a year ago. It was that kind of thing between grown adults, and since I've always liked him, I never hid my feelings for him. Adrian had actually been aware of it all along, but neither of us ever brought it up. We got together 2 years ago when he was just starting to make a name for himself. I went to negotiate a brand endorsement deal for him and drank quite a bit during the business dinner. I kept up a flawless facade of composure and witty conversation until the contract was signed and the brand representatives were safely in their car. Only then did I start vomiting. Adrian took me home and stayed to look after me. In my dazed state, I heard him sigh helplessly by my bedside and say, "Rebecca, you push yourself too hard." Adrian was usually cold and reticent, so it was the first time I'd heard such a helpless tone from him. I couldn't help but laugh. I was somewhat of a legend in the industry, starting as a junior assistant. At a young age, I'd worked my way up to become a top-tier agent. Now, though young, I handled everything flawlessly and never gave anyone cause for criticism. Hearing my laughter, he couldn't suppress a smile. Either I opened my eyes to look at him and joked half seriously, "If I didn't push myself, how could I possibly elevate you to the top?" He paused for a moment, then said softly, "Rebecca, I'm so lucky to have met you." This was the first time he thanked me. Later, the two of us reached an unspoken understanding. Perhaps the moment was right, and so we just ended up together. Both Adrian and I were adults with normal physical needs, and we spent every day together. They're saying that the moon is easiest to reach from the nearest pavilion. After 7 years, I finally plucked the moon I had longed for in my youth. But now, glancing at Audrey, whose face instantly turned pale upon hearing my words, I absent-mindedly thought to myself, the moon of my youth also had its own moon. As this substitute, I wonder if it's time for me to step down. 3. When Adrian returned, I was sitting on the sofa, leisurely sipping tea. Audrey stood awkwardly and aggrieved beside the opposite sofa, refusing to sit down. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed red, as if I'd bullied her. Adrian froze for a moment when he saw me holding the items in his hands. Audrey, as if seeing her savior, immediately called out with a hint of grievance, "Adrian." Adrian ignored her, treating her with apparent indifference, and only asked me, "Rebecca, what brings you here?" I glanced at him, although he didn't acknowledge Audrey, and only spoke to me. He was standing right beside her. Knowing him as well as I did, I could tell this was his subtle way of protecting her. Without showing any emotion, I placed the teacup on the table and pulled out my phone to show him the video the media had sent me. He took it, and after just a glance, quickly explained, "This is a misunderstanding," she asked my sister Audrey. Audrey looked at him when he said this, her eyes reddening further, clearly on the verge of breaking down. I smiled and asked him, "Biological sister." He paused before explaining, "She asked my childhood neighbor. We haven't seen each other in years, or her family had an accident, so she came to seek refuge with me." Audrey, I've already looked into her thoroughly on my way here. After Adrian dropped out back then, she wasn't affected at all, and took the college and trans exams, normally getting into a mediocre university. After graduation, she became an ordinary office clerk. I know she contacted Adrian during his debut year back when Adrian got expelled because of her incident. She didn't even see him off. I don't know what Adrian was thinking, but he didn't reply to her messages. This time she came looking for Adrian because her father fell for a pyramid scheme, not only losing a large sum of money himself, but also dragging down relatives and friends who lost everything. Her father ran away, and Audrey couldn't stay in her hometown anymore, so she burned all bridges and came straight to Adrian. Now it seems she probably bet on the right horse. Adrian resented her for burning bridges and showing cold indifference back then, but ultimately couldn't bring himself to abandon her. Perhaps the moonlight of one's youth always holds something special. It's the same for me, and the same for Adrian. I nodded without mincing words and asked him, "What's your plan? Just let her stay here with you." Adrian glanced at Audrey and frowned slightly, as if deep in thought. This scene truly made my heart sink. I stood up and made the decision for him bluntly. "I've already intercepted one PR crisis for you. She can't stay here, it's too risky. I'll have my assistant help her rent a place and get settled soon." I paused, then looked into his eyes and continued, "Adrian, I hope you won't interfere with matters related to her anymore. I'm saying this not just as your agent, but also as your girlfriend." It was only then that Audrey spoke up timidly. She certainly knew how to play the weak card, though not particularly pretty. Her delicate demeanor easily evoked pity. She said, "Sis, you've misunderstood. There's nothing between Adrian and me. I was starving when I arrived, so Adrian took me out for hot pot. The smell was too strong, so I took a shower. But I ran away and didn't bring anything with me, so I had to wear Adrian's clothes." After speaking, she opened the bag Adrian had just gone out to buy and showed it to me as if offering an explanation, saying, "See, Adrian just went out to buy me clothes. I'll change and leave with you. Don't worry, I won't cause him any trouble." With that, she picked up the clothes and walked confidently toward Adrian's bedroom, clearly familiar with the layout, presumably to change. In the entertainment industry, I've seen it all. Her act was so transparent, but such low-level tactics weren't even worth my attention, so I just stood there waiting for her to come out. Adrian stood across from me and offered an explanation. "Rebecca, I didn't mean to hide it from you. I just didn't think it was necessary. There's nothing between us. Don't overthink it." I looked up at him, still smiling. At this point, having spent so long in the entertainment industry, I'd long since learned to shield all my emotions. My smile was gentle, but my words were cutting as I said, "Adrian, you could have had someone take her to a hotel or transferred her some money, not brought her back to your private residence, let her shower and wear your clothes, then parade her in front of me. This is the first time, so I'll let it slide. I expect you to know your limits." No sooner had I finished speaking than Audrey emerged from the bedroom. She froze for a moment when she saw our tense standoff, then I noticed the corners of her lips twitch upward almost involuntarily. But in an instant she composed herself and approached with downcast eyes, murmuring softly, "Sister, I'm all packed, let us go." I turned to grab my car keys. Only when reaching the doorway did I seem to remember something, glancing back at Adrian to say, "Oh, I won't be coming back here. You know about my cleanliness obsession. Just throw out everything I've left behind." For after dropping Audrey off at a hotel, I set off for Milan. One of the other artists under my management has a major runway show in Milan, and I need to be there in person to oversee it before I can feel at ease. By the time I finished my work in Milan and returned, a week had already passed. Adrian came to pick me up at the airport. Only after arriving back home did I allow myself to show signs of exhaustion. Rubbing my temples, I caught Adrian glancing at me as he asked, did everything go smoothly? His question made me laugh, and I looked back at him replying, when have I ever messed anything up? He laughed too, turning the steering wheel in another direction, and said, that's true, there's nothing you can't handle. After a pause, he said to me in a casual tone, by the way, last time you said you wouldn't go to that apartment anymore. So I moved to the neighborhood in Huangpu district. I've bought new things to replace yours and put them in the same places. I hummed an acknowledgement, and his voice lowered as he said, Rebecca, I'm sorry. I looked up at him and smiled. It's fine, I can forgive you for first offense, but next time I won TV, so easy to talk to. He also smiled and said, no, I'll cherish this opportunity you've given me. I didn't speak. Both Adrian and I were smart people. I have an easygoing personality and don't forcefully interfere too much with the boundaries between my boyfriend and other women, because I've always believed that self-awareness doesn't need to be managed. These things should be handled with subtlety, but I'll only give one reminder. Since Adrian debuted, there have actually been quite a few collaborators and female celebrities who secretly showed him favor, and he handled them all very well. Love between adults comes together by fate. If his heart is with you, don't overthink it. If his heart isn't with you, what's the use of keeping constant watch over him? So I've always let things take their natural course. Later, Adrian briefly explained his entanglement with Audrey to me, and I considered the matter closed until Adrian and Audrey trended on social media. During that period, I had helped Adrian secure a role in a period drama after he entered the filming crew. I was busy with other matters, but perhaps due to sheer exhaustion, I suddenly fell seriously ill. The symptoms of the flu hit me hard, dizzy and muddle-headed. I collapsed like a mountain under the weight of illness. My colleagues sent me home, forcing me to rest. I was truly exhausted, so I turned off my phone, drew the curtains, and slept like the dead for an entire day. When I woke up, it was past 8 p.m. I turned off airplane mode on my phone and immediately sensed something was wrong. There were countless missed calls. Opening my messages, the latest one was from the company's PR team. Rebecca, are you awake? Something has happened. Check the trending topics. I opened Weibo, and the top trending topic was a shocking explosive. It was about Adrian and Audrey. Last time I intercepted the video of them shopping together at the supermarket, but this time the media outlet was clearly from a rival camp. They didn't even come to negotiate a price and just released it directly. The backdrop was the set of Adrian's period drama with its classical aesthetic. The video was shaky, and my heart sank the moment I opened it because it clearly showed Adrian and Audrey's faces. There was no way to deny it now. In the video, Audrey was bouncing around Adrian, waving her arms excitedly, though Adrian remained still and expressionless. It was obvious he was keeping an eye on the path ahead of her. Until Audrey accidentally twisted her ankle. Adrian crouched in front of her, bending down to examine her foot. Audrey tried to take a step, then looked up at Adrian. Even from such a distance, her pouting lips were visible, clearly sulking. She must have said something, because Adrian paused for a moment before scooping her up in his arms. The video abruptly ended there, followed by a series of candid photos, them having late-night snacks on set, among other scenes where the two were clearly interacting a lot. My head started buzzing again, a dizzying sensation washing over me, yet my thoughts were strangely crystal clear. I called the PR team, my voice hoarse from illness, and got straight to the point for the response. These photos and videos are easy to handle. Just say Audrey is a newly hired assistant. While we're at it, hype up Adrian's gentle, polite, and friendly demeanor toward staff. Compile his past interactions with various crew members over the years. Have marketing accounts, spread it widely, and get the water army ready. The team sprang into action. Immediately putting down my phone, I noticed numerous probing messages from media outlets on WeChat. Frowning, I handled each inquiry flawlessly without revealing anything. Before I knew it, 2 hours had slipped by. PR crises are manageable as long as there are no explicit kissing photos. Any negative can be spun into a positive. Adrian's message was pinned at the top of my WeChat along with his missed calls, but I didn't respond. I was deep in thought. My fingertip hovered over Adrian's profile picture on the screen as I pondered how to handle our relationship. Just then a new call came in. It was from the property management of Adrian's former residence. Adrian rarely stayed in city, so I'd been handling his property and utility matters for him. The person on the line was very polite, asking, Miss Rebecca, your car is parked in someone else's spot. Another resident has just returned, so I was wondering if you could come move it. I froze for a moment, but I quickly regained my composure and said, sorry, I'll be right there. I hadn't been to Adrian's house since Audrey last visited. When I arrived at the residential complex, I saw a car parked in someone else's spot. It was Adrian's car, though he hadn't driven it in a long time. I don't have the key. Through the front windshield, I can see adorable plush toys and decorations whose preference this is couldn't be more obvious. He's south been letting Audrey drive this car. I laugh and say to the property manager beside me, I don't want this car anymore. Call a tow truck to haul it away. Then I go upstairs to the 32nd floor. The door feels both familiar and foreign. I walk over and enter my birthday into the keypad. After 2 beeps, it displays password error. I pause, then enter 0712 instead, Audrey's birthday. As for why I know her birthday, it's because back in high school, every July 12th, Adrian would come to my house to buy Audrey a strawberry cake. His focused gaze as he carefully selected the cake made him appear even more handsome and tender at that moment. While solving problems behind the counter, I couldn't help stealing glances at his face and thinking to myself, Audrey, what a fortunate girl she is. I wonder if it was that deeply rooted envy from back then that gave me this inexplicable obsession with Adrian. So when I saw him again years later, at first glance, I still wanted him, but now it's time for this obsession to fade away. The lock beeped and opened. I pushed the door ajar. Just standing at the entrance to glance inside was enough. Adrian had let Audrey live here, and she probably didn't tidy up much, so traces of her life were scattered everywhere. When Adrian bought this place, he was too busy filming, so I decorated it for him little by little. I looked around and spotted Adrian's jacket on the sofa tangled with Audrey's clothes, a cozy, intimate domestic scene. I'm naturally aloof and easygoing, rarely angered. In my mind, every problem has a solution. If there's a way to fix it, then useless emotions are just unnecessary. But this was the first time I felt nauseous and sick to my stomach. I could control my emotions, but not the most visceral physical reaction. I wanted to vomit. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, waiting for the discomfort to subside before expressionlessly closing the door. Then I booked a flight to Adrian's city. 6 by the time I landed, it was already afternoon. Adrian was filming. The crew members were all familiar with me, greeting me politely and respectfully. I smiled and nodded until the assistant director came over. We were old acquaintances in the entertainment industry. It's all about resources and connections. After exchanging pleasantries, he quietly probed. Rebecca, be honest with me. Who's that girl who's been trending with Adrian? She has been hanging around the set every day, and I can tell Adrian treats her differently. I chuckled, skillfully dodging the question. Just a personal assistant. The assistant director smirked at me and added, that's what I thought. Not that there's anything wrong with her, but she's a bit unsophisticated. I doubt Adrian would have such poor taste. I smiled, then followed his lead to Adrian's trailer. Pausing after pulling open the door, I saw an open bag of chips, a half-finished juice, and Audrey's pink jacket draped over the seat back. Instead of entering, I walked around to the other side where Adrian's self-appointed assistant was crouched playing a game. I called out gently, "Nathan." He jerked his head up at the sound, visibly startled. When he saw me, immediately locking his phone screen as he scrambled to his feet. "Rebecca," he greeted. I smiled and said to him, "Go tell Adrian to come see me after he has done with the scene. I have something to discuss with him." He responded with an "I," and dashed off with his phone moving so fast it was like he was rushing to deliver urgent news. Someone brought over a lounge chair. I was indeed quite tired, so I lay down for a short nap. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. When I woke up, Adrian was sitting beside me, and his jacket was draped over me. I slightly furrowed my brows, pushed the piece of clothing aside, then pulled out a wet wipe from nearby, and wiped my hands. The moment I stirred awake, Adrian turned around. He didn't speak, his gaze shifting from his discarded clothes to the wet wipe in my hand. After a pause, I noticed his expression change slightly. I remained silent until I finished meticulously wiping my hands. Before looking at him, my eyes traveled from his face to the space behind him as I asked, "Where's Audrey?" He didn't offer any explanation or defense, simply saying to me, "Rebecca, I can't help it." The words seemed abrupt and incomplete, but I understood. He had no choice. Audrey was his first love, forever frozen in the memories of his youth, the person he was willing to sacrifice his future for back in high school. He couldn't let her go, couldn't turn a blind eye to her, couldn't bring himself to be cruel. Tisk, such devotion is truly moving. I smiled emotionlessly, pulling a contract from my bag and handing it to Adrian. He took a glance through it, then looked surprised. It was an employment contract for Audrey. I said, "The PR statement has already been issued. Since we're claiming Audrey is your newly hired personal assistant, we can't let anyone find out. She isn't have her come sign the contract. It just so happens you're short a personal assistant anyway. Since you and Audrey are so close and know each other inside out, it works out. The salary will be deducted from your card, and you can decide how much to pay her yourself." Adrian froze, probably not expecting me to be so accommodating. I laughed at his expression, polite, yet with just the right amount of teasing, not coming off as overly distant. "Why are you looking at me like that? What did you think I came here for, to break up the happy couple or to assert my dominance?" He frowned, studying me intently, trying to glean my true feelings from my expression and tone. If my emotions could be easily read, I wouldn't be in this business. Besides, what's the big deal? It's just my man keeping ties with his first love and sneaking around behind my back. There are plenty of men out there. Kick him to the curb when it's time, toss him aside when needed. Adrian can make me money emotionally. He is disposable, but his remaining value is still useful to me. No one turns their nose up at money. I told him, "Adrian, we're a community of shared interests like grasshoppers tied to the same string. Solving your problems is solving my own. The reason I personally came to deliver this contract is simply to inform you. You know I have a serious cleanliness obsession, right?" Adrian's face instantly turned pale. He understood. I had thrown away everything Audrey had touched in his room, let alone him. I discarded those things, and now I'm discarding him too. From now on, we'll simply have a professional relationship. As agent and artist, I'll handle these matters for him solely out of professional integrity. Besides, a breakup should at least be said face to face. A rare look of confusion surfaced on his face. Over the years, he had grown accustomed to relying on me. All he needed to do was act while I took care of everything else. That wouldn't happen anymore. His expression went blank for a moment. Instinctively, he took a step toward me, reaching out as if to pull me back and stop me from leaving. He said, "Rebecca." Before I could dodge, an angry voice roared from behind me, "Rebecca, what are you?" I couldn't help but laugh. Audrey charged over like a mother hen protecting her chicks, spreading her arms in front of Adrian, her face burning with indomitable fury. Well, this was straight out of a soap opera. She stiffened her neck and glared at me, saying, "Rebecca, I came here on my own. It has nothing to do with Adrian. If you have anything to say, direct it at me." I couldn't be bothered to engage with her. Instead, I shifted my gaze from her face to Adrian's and said, "Coolly, have her sign the contract and send it back to the company. I'll have Alexia coordinate the rest with your assistant." I gave him a polite nod, maintaining the last shred of decorum, and said, "I'll take my leave now." 7. I handed over Adrian's remaining matters to Alexia, whom I had personally mentored. I've actually rarely personally managed artists in the past year, having transitioned from being an agent to capital. Apart from a few close confidants, not many know I now hold 35 shares in the current talent agency. In other words, aside from the top boss, I'm essentially the second in command behind the scenes. As for me, I can take things up and put them down just as easily. Adrian, I dropped him the moment I decided to, mainly because I'm too busy with too many matters. Romantic affairs probably don't even account for 5 of my life. His betrayal felt like a common cold to me, gone after a good night's sleep. After returning from Adrian's film set, I went abroad to meet with the company's executives and shareholders to report on the financial statements. Our net profit income far surpassed all other domestic talent agencies. So, after the meeting, everyone stayed abroad for a short vacation. I had already handed over all artist-related tasks, and from this meeting onward my work would primarily involve dealing with capital. During this time I received a message from Adrian. He had probably finished filming and returned home, sending me a photo of his utterly disastrous apartment. He asked me, "Rebecca, did you hire someone to wreck this?" Oh yes, that home of Adrian's that I decorated bit by bit. I had all the efforts I put into it torn down. If Audrey wants to live there, he can redecorate it himself, but that has nothing to do with me anymore. I clicked open the photo of the ruins, glanced at it, then scoffed. I didn't reply. Later he sent me a few more messages, clearly just making small talk, nothing that required a response. I ignored them all. By the time I leisurely returned to the country, a month had already passed. I'm someone who keeps a clear boundary between my personal life and work. The day after landing, I immediately summoned all the agents to prepare for a meeting. Having worked together for so long, everyone is familiar with my pace, so everything went smoothly. That is until after the meeting, when Alexia remained seated looking like she had something to say, but couldn't bring herself to speak. Surprised, I raised an eyebrow at her and asked something wrong. After hesitating for a moment, she finally said, "It's about Adrian." I closed the file and assumed a listening posture. Alexia paused, then said, "Rebecca, I've dealt with the media several times this past month. You know Adrian and his personal assistant, right? Whether it's coincidence or intentional, the paparazzi always manage to sneak photos of them. Nothing scandalous, but it's already crossed the boundaries of normal friendship." Alexia started off calmly, but as she spoke her tone turned increasingly resentful. She sighed. "Adrian's status is what it is. I can't be too harsh with him, but recently some of his fan club's core supporters have started getting restless and dissatisfied. They've been coming to me asking what is going on. And you know Adrian and Audrey grew up together. The media might suppress it, but these fans can dig things up. For now, we can still keep a lid on it." With a woeful expression, she said, "But, Rebecca, we really can't suppress it any longer. Something will happen sooner or later, and it won't be a minor issue." I looked up at the window, my tone indifferent. "Didn't we just sign a batch of newcomers, pair them with Adrian, and let him enter them? Push the newcomers up as quickly as possible. Adrian has held the top spot for too long. He has forgotten how he climbed up in the first place." Adrian's schedule was packed. The company had signed several new talents, and assigned Adrian to appear with them. I took them to variety shows and live streams, and of course, when filming dramas, I would promote several at once. The newcomers quickly gained public favor, though in the process, I was dragged onto trending searches by his fans for profiting off Adrian's misfortune. Seeing the engagement on the topic, I immediately had hired commenters pose as new fans to humbly promote the newcomers in the discussion. The next time I heard from Adrian, he sent me a photo of himself hooked up to an 4-drip, no words attached. I couldn't tell if he was showing weakness to get me to visit him or protesting that the company had scheduled too many activities for him. After some thought, I sent him a red envelope to placate him. Later I saw a photo in my social media feed of company colleagues visiting Adrian. The main focus of the photo was naturally Adrian. Everyone else was standing or sitting in chairs nearby, but only Audrey was seated right beside his hospital bed with one hand on his shoulder and her face pressed close to his, looking extremely intimate. She carried herself like the lady of the house. I couldn't help but laugh. The incident was bound to happen. In any case, by the time the matter reached me, several top fans had jointly demanded the company fire Audrey. Every celebrity has their top fans. Some fan accounts are even managed by the company itself. Below these top fans are the casual followers, and sometimes the influence of top fans can rival that of the celebrities themselves. Like organizing campaigns, controlling public opinion, boosting data, supporting their idol's endorsements, and capturing viral event photos, all these require top fans to mobilize casual fans into action. In recent years, fans' expectations of celebrities have actually become increasingly lenient as long as they don't sleep with the wrong people, pay their taxes properly, and even date normally without cheating. That's enough. To be honest, fans have been quite tolerant, but they couldn't tolerate Audrey. First, when they were at events holding up cameras to capture Adrian's best shots, Audrey, whether intentionally or not, would either stand on tiptoe to fix his hair or lean affectionately against his shoulder. This small-scale fan disturbance within Adrian's fandom was caused by a major fan who had some verbal conflict with Audrey, and Adrian stood up for Audrey. I happen to know that particular big fan. She was one of Adrian's earliest supporters in his pre-fame years when he wasn't popular, yet she never missed a single event cheering for him, meeting him at airports, rain or shine, to take photos and promoting him to everyone around. She originally stanned a top male idol group, but while following that superstar, she spotted Adrian practicing group choreography over and over for a single shot in the training room, and that's how she became his fan. The first Weibo post from the account she created for Adrian was a photo of him practicing dance during his unknown days, captioned, "There's a kind of resilient responsibility and diligence in him, a sunlight of upward vitality, like a seed buried beneath concrete striving to split through the darkness to take root and sprout." Adrian actually hurt the hearts of the fans who sacrificed so much for him, all for Audrey, the one who abandoned him back then. As I looked over the report submitted by the team below, I felt disappointed in Adrian. I had a talk with Adrian. Adrian was quite puzzled by my decision. He furrowed his brows slightly and said to me, "It was you who had Audrey assigned as my personal assistant in the first place, and now it's you who wants to fire her." I patiently explained Adrian different situations call for different approaches. Audrey has been too high profile. Have you forgotten it's the fans who spend money on you that have elevated you to this position, not your childhood sweetheart? Adrian stared at me. I calmly met his gaze, letting him look until he suddenly broke into a laugh. To be honest, I'd never seen Adrian wear such a mocking smile before. He looked up at me and suddenly changed the subject, asking, Rebecca, are you picking on me and targeting me because we broke up? I was stunned for a moment. He continued, first, you made me mentor newcomers, then you forced me to take a break and denied me resources, and now you're targeting Audrey over such a trivial matter. Rebecca, are you abusing your power for personal revenge? I looked at him and leaned back against the desk. In that moment of sudden understanding, I realized why Adrian had sent me photos of him being sick. He was testing my attitude. The company's newcomers are rising, and his recent schedule has been all about appearing with them. This might have given him some sense of crisis, so he couldn't help but test my attitude. I looked at Adrian, studying him intently, this restrained, calculating Adrian, and suddenly realized I might never have truly understood him. All these years he followed behind me, climbing upward, even our relationship, perhaps it was all just an act to him. Maybe in his heart he believed he was enduring humiliation for a greater cause, which is why the moment Audrey appeared, he immediately clung to the moonlight of his youth. I looked at Adrian, realizing that my initial fondness for him might have stemmed solely from the youthful filter I'd imagined and gilded him with. I laughed and said, Adrian, we're in a professional partnership. I'm merely offering suggestions. Whether you take them or not is entirely your decision. He glanced at me, then stood up and left. He'd been sailing too smoothly for too long, his vision obscured by the lofty heights, until he forgot who was it that lifted him to his current position. 9. I called Alexia over. When she arrived, I was deep in thought. She stood cautiously to the side. I tapped the table with my fingertips, a habit of mine when deep in thought. After about 5 minutes, I made my decision and asked her, did Stellar Media previously try to poach Adrian? Alexia froze, clearly not expecting this turn in the conversation. Hesitantly, she replied, abandon Adrian now and cash in on the breach of contract penalty, but his commercial value. I cut her off. He'll crash and burn sooner or later with this attitude. Commercial value is given by fans. If he lacks even this basic awareness, what kind of celebrity is he? After a pause, I added, Adrian must have wanted to terminate his contract for a while now, otherwise he wouldn't have confronted me so boldly today. He probably thinks he has offended me and is looking for a way out. I smile, but this is just as well. Let us give him a little push so he'll initiate the contract termination himself. We'll squeeze the last bit of value out of him. Alexia had clearly been dissatisfied with Adrian for a long time. Hearing this, she perked up, agreed enthusiastically, and stood up with visible excitement. As she reached the glass door to leave, she suddenly seemed to remember something, turned back, and asked me, do you still like Adrian? Rebecca, I froze for a moment. What a childish question. I laughed openly, meeting Alexia's gaze with amusement, as I replied, Alexia, I'm a businesswoman. The rose-tinted filter of our youth had long since shattered beyond repair. The only reason I tolerated him was because business people value profit above all else. Just like when he first betrayed me and I didn't react, it was because he still had value. Before maximizing my profits, of course I had to protect him. Now I smiled since he made the first move. Don't blame me for not showing mercy. The trigger for Adrian asking to terminate his contract with me was when a fan at his birthday party hit Audrey's head with a water bottle. Audrey burst into tears on the spot. Adrian showed his protective side as a boyfriend by shielding Audrey in his arms and even got into a physical altercation with the fans. All the fans present were stunned. In the end, the birthday event ended prematurely as every fan left before the scheduled time. Those present were all top fans who had my contact information. I managed to calm the situation and suppress the incident. As a result, not a single whisper of this leaked online. However, all the top fans who attended Adrian's birthday party that night collectively fell silent, leaving the casual fans waiting for an encore completely in the dark. It wasn't until Adrian came to me requesting contract termination that things came to light. Surprisingly, he didn't plan to jump ship to Stellar Media. Instead, he wanted to establish his own studio. He appeared genuinely distressed. Rebecca, I can't keep wasting my time with you. I stared at him and smiled. Back then, he said meeting me was the luckiest thing that ever happened to him. Those words still echo in my ears, yet now he uses the word wasting as if he has forgotten that without me, he'd still be waiting tables at some restaurant. The legal team handled the subsequent matters. The penalty fee was negotiated within my expectations. I knew exactly how much he'd earned over the years, and 7/10 of his fortune went into this settlement. The remaining 30% was just enough for him to start his own studio. His all or nothing gamble probably stemmed from believing entertainment industry money came too easily. He bounced back quickly. I didn't give him any advice, just smiled and said, wishing you great success and a bright future ahead. I didn't pay much attention to what happened afterward. I was too busy, and Adrian wasn't worth keeping my eyes on. But even without paying attention, I still didn't miss news about him. I suppose those few days were probably the peak of his popularity. After terminating his contract and establishing his own studio, the previously appeased top fan accounts collectively shut down and withdrew their support. After all, he was someone they once adored. Even as they closed their accounts, none of the fans spoke ill of him, only offering dignified well wishes. Even my company posted a blessing on Weibo. The casual fans below were anxious, but Adrian clearly had a plan for this. New top fan accounts emerged, spreading the usual rhetoric that these accounts were plants I had arranged, and now that Adrian had terminated his contract with me, I was deliberately sabotaging him. He lost a portion of his fan base, but overall it wasn't a devastating blow. The real devastating blow was the exposure of his relationship with Audrey. Without my protection, naturally no media would give him any favors. He always thought his smooth sailing was due to his talent, never realizing that I was the one who crafted him from scratch. I control at least 5,000 marketing accounts, each posting his videos at different times to push his popularity. You must understand people today have no ability to discern the truth behind news, whatever the media says the public believes. With my 5,000 accounts spreading the word that you're good, then you are good. Of course, if one day I change my tune and say you're bad, few will bother digging into whether you were ever truly good. There's no shortage of material. Right and wrong are just at the mercy of marketing accounts' keyboards. Naturally, I haven't issued any press releases. After all, he made me a lot of money. Though he showed no mercy, I still uphold the code of the Jonghu. But it seems I didn't even need to lift a finger. He single-handedly destroyed his own public favor. It's actually fine if he is in a relationship. Fans are quite tolerant as long as Audrey keeps a low profile. They can just pretend he isn't dating anyone. But it seems his PR team might be trying to craft a devoted lover persona for him by playing up the childhood sweethearts angle, spinning Adrian and Audrey's story as something incredibly romantic. He was expelled to protect her, and years later they reunited. He is superstar at the peak of his fame, and she a desperate girl with nowhere to turn, yet he held no grudges, loving and shielding her even at the cost of clashing with his fans and former agency. Oh, what a moving, earth-shaking love story. Too bad the press release backfired spectacularly. What the hell, why did I ever think I was an intellectual fan of this brainless idiot that it had nothing to do with his looks? Someone from Adrian's studio, come out and see for yourselves. Is this supposed to be touching? I'm disgusted. I worked so hard to support him and boost his stats only to realize I was just part of your little game. Now I get why the fan club leaders quit. I even blamed them back then. Ugh. Does anyone else think Audrey looks uglier standing next to Adrian? That Rebecca, the so-called extinction master, is really something. Packaging Adrian like this, her professional skills are truly top-notch. Who Audrey? How dare that woman still show off their relationship? Her father's pyramid schemes left my parents with nothing back then, and now she's become some big star's darling wife. The public opinion spiral grew increasingly uncontrollable. I didn't pay much attention to how it ultimately played out, but it didn't take long before Adrian became a nobody in the entertainment industry. After all, I never saw his name at any award ceremonies. The next time I heard about him was when he had an accident on stage. During a commercial performance, someone whose family had been ruined by Audrey's father brought a bottle of sulfuric acid. When it was thrown at Audrey, no one knew whether he blocked it himself or was pulled over by Audrey beside him. Half the bottle of sulfuric acid splashed onto the left side of his face. Audrey, my and Adrian's high school classmate, was also Adrian's childhood sweetheart. This was the last time he made headlines, though it was quickly buried under an avalanche of other news. He had lost his last trump card. The last time I saw him was when I went to get my car washed. The parking attendant was acting strange, wearing a mask, and froze for a long moment when he saw me before turning slightly to show only half his face. Truthfully, I didn't recognize him. It wasn't until the manager next to him nudged him that he seemed to snap out of it. Hurriedly lowering his head to take my car keys, as he turned, I caught a glimpse of his ravaged skin peeking out from beneath the mask. I paused, but didn't call his name or show any expression, just politely smiled and handed him the keys as I would to any ordinary parking attendant. I didn't ask how things ended between him and Audrey either. In the end, it had nothing to do with me anymore. I turned and walked toward the main hall in trance. Without a moment's hesitation, my smile, unwavering, the moon of my youth, had long since set.